Hello, hello, fiends, and welcome to another horrific edition of Casey's Creepy Creations. Tonight, we have a truly nauseating little nugget that I wrote and narrated in honor of Valentine's Day, which I like to call Love Requires Sacrifice. As always, we caution that the above video is not suitable for children, and if you suffer from a weak heart, please watch at your own risk. The tide's offering. The low hum of Jacob's car engine reverberated through the stillness of the coastal highway. Curtains of mist clung to the jagged cliffs, and the rhythmic crash of waves against stone echoed faintly in the background. Beside him, Lily, his girlfriend of just over a year, fiddled with the radio. "This stretch always messes with the signal," she said with a nervous smile. Jacob smirked, brushing off the unease growing in his chest. "Coastal charm, huh? Can't beat static and fog." But somewhere deep inside, he couldn't ignore the subtle warning signs. Every mile closer to her hometown seemed to fray the edges of her usually calm demeanor. She kept glancing out the window, her fingers tapping a restless rhythm on the dashboard. When they finally passed a weathered wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Greywater Cove," Jacob felt an inexplicable chill roll over him. The town was an unsettling picture. Shrouded in thick fog, its wooden buildings leaned with age, while rusty fishing boats sat abandoned in skeletal docks. Among the lampposts hung strange wind chimes made of shells and bones, clinking faintly in the wind. "This place, it's got character," he joked weakly. Lily offered a tight-lipped smile but said nothing. Lily's family greeted Jacob with warm, toothy smiles that stretched too far. Her mother, Agatha, grasped Jacob's hand a little too tightly, her watery blue eyes alight with an unnerving enthusiasm. "You must be starving. Come, let's eat," she cooed, ushering him inside their creaky Victorian home. As they sat down to dinner, Agatha and Lily's father, Gerald, drowned Jacob in polite conversation. But their hospitality felt rehearsed, calculated. Beneath the sweetness was a creeping sense of predation. They kept asking personal questions, probing for intimate details about his life. The smell of the sea wafted through the open windows, sharp and briny, filling the silences between their peculiar inquiries. Lily giggled nervously when Gerald offered a toast. "To Jacob," he boomed, raising his glass of dark, almost oily wine. "To new beginnings and bountiful blessings." The family clinked glasses, their smiles bordering on manic, but Jacob hesitated before reluctantly taking a sip. His unease only deepened when a slip of conversation from Agatha made it to his ears. "You're sure he's the right one?" she whispered when she thought Jacob wasn't listening. That night, Jacob stirred in his sleep, restless under the heavy weight of an old quilt patterned with strange spirals and waves. Faint chanting floated through the floorboards. He crept from his room, careful not to alert Lily or her parents. Downstairs, the faint murmur of voices grew clearer. Peering through a crack in the basement door, he saw Agatha and Gerald huddled around a distorted statue carved from driftwood. It depicted a monstrous thing, a mass of tentacles and gaping maws. Jacob's heart raced as he caught phrases from their murmured prayers. "Thalzareth, the great devourer, he feeds and protects. The sacrifice must be made." The floor creaked beneath Jacob's foot. The chanting abruptly stopped. He darted back to his room, his mind racing with the implications of what he had just witnessed. As he threw himself into bed, Lily stirred awake. "Are you okay?" she whispered groggily. Jacob hesitated. "Yeah, just couldn't sleep." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment before she drifted back into slumber. leaving Jacob to stare at the dark ceiling, haunted by the name Thalzarath. The next morning, Jacob wandered into the town under the guise of exploring, hoping to clear his mind. The fog was thicker now, muffling his footsteps and wrapping Greywater Cove in an eerie stillness. A withered man in a fisherman's cap sat near the docks, puffing on a bent pipe. Jacob approached, feeling as though the man's milky eyes were already waiting for him. "You're not from round here, are you?" the man croaked. Jacob feigned a smile. "Here visiting my girlfriend's family. It's a charming town." The man let out a dry chuckle. "Charming, sure, but beware, son. This town eats boys like you alive." Rattled, Jacob pressed the man for answers. The fisherman leaned closer, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Thalzarath, the beast in the deep. They feed it. Blood for blessings. Don't be the lamb, boy." Jacob stumbled backward, shaking his head in disbelief. Was this some local folklore? A trick to scare outsiders? But the man's pale, deadened eyes told him otherwise. Back at the house, Jacob's fears crystallized into panic when he found an open journal on a desk in the study. Its pages were filled with handwritten accounts of sacrifices made to Thalzarath. He flipped through them, dread crawling up his spine. Each year, a name. Each year, the sea rewarded the town. His fingers froze when he reached the entry for this year. His own name, Jacob, was scrawled neatly at the bottom. The study door creaked open. It was Lily holding 2 mugs of tea. "What are you doing in here?" she asked softly, her expression unreadable. He gestured lamely toward the journal, but froze at her lack of surprise. Lily set the mugs down and sighed. "I didn't know how to tell you," she whispered. Her words hit Jacob like a tidal wave. She knew. Night fell quickly, and Jacob found himself dragged from bed by Gerald and Agatha. They overpowered his thrashing, binding his wrists and gagging him. "This isn't personal," Gerald intoned almost apologetically. "It's tradition." Jacob's muffled cries echoed as he was carried out to the cliffs, where dozens of townsfolk had gathered beneath the light of flickering torches. Their eyes gleamed with fanatic devotion as they chanted in a guttural language he couldn't understand. The tide rolled out far into the darkness, revealing slick, jagged rocks coated in seaweed. The coastal wind carried a deep, rumbling growl that Jacob could feel in his bones. When the townsfolk began their chant anew, the sea came alive. The blackened waves churned with a violence that suggested sentience, and then it rose. Thalzarath emerged from the depths, its immense, otherworldly form blotting out the moonlight. Tentacles writhed like serpents. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed with malevolent hunger. The air grew heavy with the stench of salt and decay as Jacob stared in helpless horror. This was no myth. This was a god of the abyss, awakened and ravenous. Tears spilled from Jacob's eyes as he was dragged to the sacrificial altar. But then, as his captors were distracted, Lily stepped forward. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she brandished a knife. The crowd gasped, and for a moment Jacob wasn't sure who she intended to strike. But with a sudden burst of fury, she cut Jacob's bindings, grabbing his wrist and pulling him from the altar. "This is wrong," she shouted. The townsfolk hesitated, caught between loyalty to tradition and this act of defiance. Jacob's instincts kicked in. Grabbing a broken piece of the altar, He hurled it toward the mass of torches, igniting a rush of flames and scattering the crowd. Talzareth roared, its immense tendrils smashing into the cliffs with destructive force. The ground quaked as Lily and Jacob sprinted through the chaos, dodging collapsing rocks and panicked villagers. "You can't stop it now," Gerald's voice rang out behind them. "It demands blood." Jacob remembered the artifact from the journal, the idol the family prayed to. Desperate, he grabbed it from the frantic Agatha and threw it toward the sea. For a moment, nothing happened. But then Talzareth paused, its tendrils retracted. With a low guttural rumble, the demon receded into the waves. The town was left in shattered silence. The cliffs lay in ruins. As dawn broke, Jacob and Lily stood at the edge of the town, surveying the destruction. "We have to leave now," Jacob said firmly. But Lily's expression remained troubled as she looked back toward the sea. Faint ripples disturbed the water's surface. And somewhere in the depths of Grey-Water Cove, something ancient stirred, hungry and waiting. The tide, after all, would rise again. Well, boils and ghouls, happy Valentine's Day from all of us here at the Writer's Tomb. We've come to the end of yet another terrifying tale. If you've liked what you've seen, please feel free to drop us a like, a comment, or maybe even a subscription. They may seem like little things to you, but they mean a lot to us here at the dungeon. If you like the video and would like to find out how it was made, click the link in the description below. I am affiliated with Fleeky AI and will receive commission if you decide to make a purchase. They also have a free plan as well if you would like to try it out. And by the way, if you like what we've got for you here, then maybe you might want to check out these other YouTubers, Overlord DVD, Theta Zord, Osaka Chandal, and Stark of Iron. Links in description. They're to die for. Thanks, and unpleasant dreams until we meet again.